The human heart is a vessel of secrets, carrying within it both the agony of wounds and the ecstasy of awakenings. Pain arrives like an uninvited guest, cloaked in silence, heavy with shadows, pressing itself against the soul until resistance is futile. And yet, beneath its suffocating weight, there lies a secret rhythm, an unspoken lesson, a whisper that the universe delivers through suffering. Every tear, every betrayal, every fractured trust is not random. It is the cosmos pulling apart the illusions you have carefully stitched, exposing you to truths you never want to confront. Pain is not punishment. It is initiation. It is the descent into the underworld, the dark cave where shadows gather, demanding recognition. Carl Jung once declared, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." This is the paradox of pain. The universe pushes you downward, not to destroy you, but to deepen you. The more a woman has suffered, the more fiercely her soul has been tempered, the more luminous her inner fire burns. The first lesson of pain is that resistance only multiplies it. A strong woman does not break herself against the storm. She lets the storm move through her. She allows pain to carve the hollow spaces within her, knowing that emptiness is not absence but capacity. The deeper the hollow, the more light it can eventually contain. And yet, when pain arrives, you deny it. You tell yourself, "I should not feel this. I should be stronger. I should already have healed." But in those very words, you chain yourself to the ego's illusion of control. The universe is ruthless in shattering control, because love, transformation, and awakening cannot bloom where control reigns. Look closely. The wound you carry is not just a scar. It is a mirror. Within its cracked surface you see every shadow of unworthiness, every memory of rejection, every whisper of abandonment. You think the pain is about the man who left, the betrayal that cut you, the silence that haunted you. But no, the true pain lies deeper. It is the excavation of ancient patterns, the uncovering of the inner child, the unveiling of unmet needs you bury beneath performance, strength, and pride. Pain is the scalpel that slices away illusion. It is merciless, yes, but in that mercilessness, it frees you. The universe whispers through suffering. You cannot be who you are meant to be while clinging to what you were. You feel the ache in your chest, the heaviness in your bones, the burning in your eyes. And though you resist, though you rage, though you collapse into despair, the truth remains. The universe does not give pain without purpose. Every ache is a teacher. Every silence is a classroom. Every heartbreak is a threshold. The woman who allows pain to speak instead of silencing it begins to hear an ancient language. She realizes that pain is not the enemy. It is the initiation rite of the soul. Without it, there is no individuation, no wholeness, no transcendence. The lesson arrives slowly, like a tide creeping upon the shore. At first, unbearable. Then, quietly transformative. Pain shows her what she cannot tolerate anymore. It teaches her where her boundaries must harden, where her love must deepen, where her self-worth must expand. And in this strange alchemy, what once shattered her becomes the very thing that remakes her. Pain is the great dissolver of illusions. It strips away the masks you wear, the roles you cling to, the borrowed identities you once believed were your own. It exposes the falseness of the life you thought would protect you. Suddenly, the man who promised forever is gone. The job that defined your work collapses. The friendships you lean on evaporate into silence. And there you stand bare, trembling, with no ground beneath you. But in that terrifying nakedness, the universe delivers its second lesson, surrender. Not the kind of surrender that feels like weakness, but the kind that is born from wisdom, a surrender that whispers, what was never truly yours cannot be lost. Here, Jung's shadow work comes alive. For when pain rips away the outer scaffolding, what remains is the shadow self, the exiled parts of you that have longed for recognition. The abandonment you feel now is not new. It is the echo of every abandonment your soul has endured. The humiliation is not isolated. It is the ghost of every moment you silence yourself to be accepted. To resist this truth is to remain trapped. To surrender to it is to enter the alchemy of transformation. Pain reveals what you have always projected outward, your unmet needs, your unresolved traumas, your desire to be seen by another because you have not yet fully seen yourself. You ask, why me? Why this suffering? And the universe answers not with words, but with silence, because the silence itself is the teaching. The absence forces you inward, to listen to the echoes of your own soul. It is here that Stoic wisdom meets Jungian psychology. The Stoics taught that suffering is not an event, but an interpretation. It is not what happened that tortures you, but what you believe it means. You believe loss means you are unworthy. You believe rejection means you are unlovable. You believe betrayal means you are broken. But pain, in its quiet wisdom, insists otherwise. It insists that nothing external has the power to define your worth. The universe teaches that surrender is not giving up, it is giving in. It is letting go of the story that suffering is your enemy and realizing that suffering is your oracle. And yet, few accept this easily. Most fight against it. They numb themselves with distractions, drown themselves in noise, chase validation like starving wolves. But those who dare to stand still, to surrender into the burning, find something extraordinary. The fire that seemed to consume them begins to refine them. Imagine the woman who surrenders. Her tears no longer fall in despair, but in release. Her body, once clenched with resistance, softens into the present moment. She does not deny the ache in her heart, but she no longer fears it. She begins to see that pain is not permanent. It is passing through her, shaping her, cleansing her. This is when the lesson deepens. Surrender to pain is surrender to life itself. To resist pain is to resist your own becoming. But when you let it flow through you, when you allow the universe to carve away everything false, what emerges is a self more authentic, more luminous, more unbreakable than before. Pain, then, becomes less an enemy and more a midwife, delivering you into the next version of yourself. When the fires of suffering burn long enough, another truth emerges, one far sharper than surrender. Pain becomes a sculptor of boundaries. It teaches you that to be endlessly open is not compassion, but self-destruction. To give without discernment is not love, but abandonment of the self. Think of every betrayal you've endured, every time you trusted the wrong hands, every moment you silenced your intuition to preserve someone else's comfort. Each wound was not merely an accident. It was a revelation. Pain has been mapping the edges of your soul, showing you where you end and where another begins. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the sacred process of becoming whole. Yet no soul can individuate without first discovering the sacred art of no. For no is not rejection. It is recognition. It is the voice of the self-declaring, I am not here to be consumed. The universe carves this lesson through pain, because joy rarely teaches boundaries. When all flows smoothly, you allow, you bend, you merge. But when betrayal strikes, when manipulation coils around your trust, when you wait to find yourself used, the ache becomes a teacher. Pain presses its hand against your chest and whispers, you cannot give what is not honored. You cannot stay where you are not seen. And in this revelation, something miraculous happens. The person who once allowed others to dictate her worth begins to guard her inner temple. No longer does she open the gates of her soul to every passerby. Instead, she stands as a guardian of her own sacred fire. This boundary is not coldness. It is clarity. It is not a wall built from bitterness, but a threshold drawn in love. For love without boundaries is not love, but dissolution. And to dissolve into another is to lose the very self the universe is asking you to become. The Stoics understood this as well. They taught that what is within your control is sacred, and what is outside your control must be released. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about protecting your essence from erosion. You, too, know this truth in your bones. You feel the tightening in your chest when you say yes, while your soul screams no. You sense the dull ache of depletion when you give beyond your reserves. These sensations are the whispers of the universe, urging you to honor your limits. The shadow, however, resists. It tells you that setting boundaries makes you selfish, unloving, unworthy of connection. This is the ancient lie, the one that keeps you enslaved to patterns of people-pleasing and self-abandonment. Pain's role is to tear through that lie until you no longer mistake martyrdom for love. Imagine the woman who finally learns this lesson. She no longer chases those who walk away. She no longer tolerates the erosion of her dignity. Her no becomes sacred, not harsh. Her yes becomes luminous, not forced. She is no longer afraid of solitude, because solitude itself has become her sanctuary. In that stance, something shifts in the eyes of others. The world senses her strength, the radiance of someone who cannot be manipulated, who cannot be bought, who cannot be consumed. Thus pain, in its cruel tenderness, teaches a lesson that boundaries are not barriers. They are invitations. They invite only those who can honor, respect, and rise to meet you. And when you embody this, you begin to realize what you once called loss was protection. What you once called heartbreak was initiation. What you once called abandonment was redirection toward the sacred task of guarding your own flame. Resilience is never born in comfort. It emerges only when life bends you low, when every illusion of safety collapses, when the ground you trusted disappears beneath your feet. Pain is a furnace that forges resilience, and the universe knows it cannot gift you the strength without first breaking what is fragile within you. Jung understood this alchemy. He wrote that there is no coming to consciousness without pain. The self does not awaken in ease. It awakens in the fractures. When the ego is shattered, when control dissolves, when the familiar dies, something ancient within begins to stir. This stirring is resilience, not the denial of pain, but the transformation of it. Imagine the woman who has been betrayed, abandoned, rejected. In the beginning, she thinks a wound is fatal. She believes her story has ended. But as days fold into nights and nights into weeks, something curious happens. The wound does not kill her, it initiates her. Slowly, she realizes she can walk even with the ache, breathe even through the sorrow, speak even as her voice trembles. This is resilience, the subtle revelation that you are larger than your pain, that the wound, no matter how deep, is not the end of you, but a doorway into a deeper self. The Stoics mirrored this truth. Marcus Aurelius whispered into the silence of his own suffering. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes a way. Pain is never a dead end. It is a passage. It strips you down, but only to reveal the unshakable core beneath, the part of you that no loss, no betrayal, no failure can destroy. Resilience is not about hardening. It is not the brittle armor that cracks under pressure. True resilience is supple like water. It bends without breaking, flows around obstacles, reshapes itself in silence. It carries scars but does not collapse beneath them. You, too, have felt this. Think back to the moments when you swore you could not endure, yet here you are. Every heartbreak you thought would finish you became the proof that you are unconquerable. Every disappointment etched strength into your bones. Every silence taught you how to stand in your own presence without fear. But the shadow resists this awakening. It whispers that resilience is cruelty, that survival means you are not truly wounded, that healing is impossible. These are the voices that keep souls chained to despair. Yet pain, persistent and patient, keeps pressing until one day you rise, not because the sorrow is gone, but because you discover it does not define you. The woman who learns this lesson becomes luminous. Others see her not as untouched by suffering, but as transfigured by it. Her resilience is magnetic. It inspires trust, draws respect, commands presence. For resilience is not about avoiding storms. It is about carrying the storm within and still choosing to walk forward. Thus, pain whispers a fourth lesson. You are not fragile. You are not defined by your wounds. You are the one who endures, the one who bends and breaks and still becomes whole again. And in that realization, the soul tastes a freedom deeper than any fleeting joy. The freedom of knowing that nothing outside you has the power to destroy what is eternal within. Pain does something curious to the human heart. It softens it. Where pride once stood like a fortress, sorrow opens a doorway. Where judgment once ruled, humility takes root. Pain, for all its cruelty, teaches compassion, the fifth lesson carved into the soul. Carl Jung observed that every wound makes us aware of our shared humanity. The shadow within us, the fear, the loss, the betrayal, mirrors the same darkness in others. And when one has suffered deeply, the eyes no longer see strangers. They see fragments of self scattered across humanity. Imagine the woman who once dismissed others' struggles with coldness, who thought herself untouched by despair. Then life hands her a wound, sharp, unrelenting, unbearable. Suddenly, she understands what it means to ache in silence, to carry a weight invisible to the world. And in that understanding, she no longer mocks, no longer judges. She leans closer. She listens. Her heart bends. The Stoics knew this too. Seneca wrote that no one is immune from the storms of fate, that suffering is the currency of the living. To pretend otherwise is arrogance. To accept it is wisdom. And in this acceptance, compassion becomes inevitable. Pain humbles. It strips away superiority, dissolves illusions of separateness, and whispers, what has happened to you can happen to anyone. Suddenly, the beggar on the street, the friend who hides her tears, the stranger with haunted eyes, all become kin. But compassion born of pain is not pity. It is not the condescending glance or the shallow comfort. True compassion is presence. It is the ability to sit with another's suffering without fleeing, without fixing, without turning away. It is the courage to look into another's wounds and whisper, I know this place. You are not alone. And yet, compassion is not only outward, it is inward. Pain teaches us that cruelty to the self deepens wounds, while kindness to the self invites healing. The woman who berates herself for not being strong enough, fast enough, perfect enough, she only multiplies her suffering. But when she learns to extend the same tenderness to her own scars that she extends to others, she becomes whole. This, too, is individuation, the journey Jung described. To reconcile with one's shadow is to offer compassion to the exiled parts of the psyche, the fearful child, the trembling lover, the betrayed soul. Pain makes us face these forgotten fragments. Compassion makes us welcome them home. The paradox is clear. Those who suffer most often love most. Their eyes carry the depth of oceans, not because life spared them, but because life wounded them until their hearts cracked wide open. Compassion is the light that spills through those cracks. You may resist this lesson. You may think your suffering has only made you bitter, guarded, unreachable. But beneath that bitterness, compassion waits. For the same fire that burns away illusions also melts the ice around the heart. And when you allow it, you discover that your pain has given you the rarest of gifts, the capacity to love in a way untouched by superficiality. The woman who learns compassion through pain becomes a healer. She does not need to cure. Her presence alone soothes. She does not preach. Her silence speaks. For compassion is not taught in books. It is etched into the soul by wounds that have finally been forgiven. Thus, pain whispers its fifth lesson. In suffering, you are not separate. You are joined to every living soul. And in that joining, love becomes inevitable. The sixth lesson arrives not as a storm, but as a quiet haunting. The realization that pain is not something to be conquered, but something to be befriended. She sits beneath the fading twilight, her hands resting upon her knees, the cool earth grounding her as the last rays of the sun dissolve into shadow. For so long, she has sought to overcome her suffering, to defeat it like an adversary. Yet now, she sees that it was never an enemy. It was the unacknowledged half of her soul waiting for her to listen. Jung whispered of individuation as a union of opposites. The light with the shadow, the conscious with the unconscious, the masculine with the feminine. In this moment, the woman senses that her pain is a forgotten twin, dark, wounded, but carrying within the raw power of transformation. The scars on her body are no longer ugly remnants of a battle. They are sacred maps where she has walked through fire and emerged not untouched, but unbroken. The universe teaches here. Wholeness does not mean perfection. Wholeness means the ability to sit with one's wounds without flinching, to embrace the rejected parts of the self without shame. The woman realizes that her pain was not asking her to vanish it, but to give a home inside her chest, a space where it could finally rest. This lesson shatters the illusion of invincibility and replaces it with something softer, yet infinitely stronger. Intimacy with one's own brokenness. It is here she learns that healing is not the absence of pain. It is the weaving of pain into meaning. The tears she shed become threads, binding her past and present into a tapestry of resilience. And now, the woman becomes dangerous in the most divine way. Dangerous not because she seeks to harm, but because she can no longer be harmed in the old ways. The universe shows her that no betrayal, no abandonment, no cruelty from the outside world can wound her deeper than she has already wounded herself, and survived. You feel this lesson echo within you, the shift from running to resting, from resistance to embrace. It whispers that your deepest hurt is also your deepest teacher, that to turn away from pain is to remain divided, but to welcome it is to step into wholeness. Pain, the universe reveals, is the sculptor. It carves away the illusions, the false attachments, the masks you wore beloved. And though the chiseling is merciless, the figure that remains is truer, more radiant, more terrifyingly real than before. This is the final revelation. Pain is not punishment. It is initiation. The woman rises from the earth as night fully descends, the stars awakening like ancient witnesses above her. Each lesson she has endured now feels like an ember glowing in her chest, not as separate fragments, but as one living fire. The universe whispers to her through the wind. You have walked the path of descent, and now you carry the knowledge of ascent. Pain was the threshold, not the prison. It was never meant to define her, only to refine her. In Jungian truth, individuation is not about becoming flawless. It is about becoming whole. The feminine archetype that once wandered in fragility now moves with the weightless strength of one who has claimed both her light and her shadow. She does not hide her cracks. She lets them shimmer, as though each fracture were a vein of gold, and the world notices. Not because she tries to impress it, but because she no longer needs its approval. Her allure is different now. It is not the shallow magnetism of youth, nor the desperate seduction of validation. It is a quiet, devastating pull of authenticity. Men sense it, but cannot name it. Women sense it and tremble, for it awakens something they had long buried in themselves. She walks as the anima made flesh, the reminder that within every person lies the untamed feminine, the force that can break through oppression and bring the soul into contact with its truth. But she is not untouchable. She is not a goddess carved from stone. Her power is softer, stranger. She smiles, and there is sorrow in her smile. She speaks, and her voice carries the echoes of every wound she has ever healed. This paradox is her magnetism. She is both wounded and whole, fragile and indestructible, lover and destroyer. The universe teaches through her presence itself. Pain, when transmuted, becomes wisdom, and wisdom, when embodied, becomes beauty. Not the kind sold in mirrors and magazines, but the eternal kind, the beauty that lingers in silence, the beauty that makes the air shift when she enters a room. And you, hearing this, cannot escape its pull. The words are no longer just about her. They are about you. You feel the fire flicker in your own chest. You feel the call to stop resisting your suffering, to stop pretending you are unscarred. You feel the dangerous invitation of the universe to become whole, even if it costs you every illusion. Pain was never your enemy. It was a language the universe used when gentler whispers went unheard. The night deepens and silence stretches across the earth like a velvet curtain. The woman stands alone beneath the constellations, but she is no longer the same soul who once staggered through grief's labyrinth. Her body may still bear the weight of old scars, but her spirit radiates a sovereignty that no loss, no betrayal, no absence can diminish. The universe does not applaud her victory. It simply watches, ancient and unblinking, as though it has seen this transformation countless times before. For every human soul, in every century, must walk the same corridor of fire. Pain is not punishment. Pain is initiation. The Stoics knew it when they wrote of amor fati, the love of one's fate. Jung knew it when he spoke of individuation, the integration of shadow and light. And the woman knows it now, though she never saw philosophy or doctrine. She learned it the only way anyone ever truly learns, through breaking, through surrender, through the long ache of becoming. Her steps are slower now, but not from weariness. They are deliberate, each one carrying the gravity of choice. She no longer flees her suffering, nor does she worship it. She walks with it at her side, like an old companion, once feared, now understood. And in this companionship lies her beauty. She does not cling to joy, nor does she curse sorrow. She lives at the center, in that quiet, trembling balance where life reveals its deepest truths. Those who meet her feel it instantly, an inexplicable calm, a mysterious magnetism, the kind of presence that lingers even after she is gone. The universe's final lesson is etched into her soul, that every wound, every fracture, every night spent in silence was not meant to end her, but to reveal her. She does not need to announce her transformation, for it is written in the way her eyes hold both storms and sunlight, in the way her silence speaks louder than any word. And so the cycle turns. Another will stumble into pain, another will resist, another will break, another will rise. The story is endless, because the universe never stops teaching, never stops chiseling its truths into human hearts. And you, listening now, cannot unhear this. You feel it ripple through your own shadows, stir into places you thought were buried. The universe is not outside of you. It is inside your ribcage, inside your breath, inside your unspoken grief. It is waiting, always waiting, for you to stop fearing your pain and start listening to it. Because within the darkness lies the path. Within the wound lies the key. Within the silence lies the truth that will one day make you whole. The universe has spoken. The rest is up to you. If these words found you in the quiet corners of your own pain, do not let them vanish into silence. The universe speaks, but it is through you that the echo continues. Share this message with those who wander in their own darkness, so they too may discover the light hidden inside their wounds. Subscribe and stay close to the sanctuary, where shadows are not feared but embraced, where healing is not rushed but honored. Let each lesson find you, again and again, until you no longer see pain as an enemy, but as your most faithful teacher. Leave your reflection below. Your story may be the mirror someone else desperately needs to see. Together, we become the constellation, the living proof that even in brokenness, we shine.